Hello everyone. So today I'll be giving a quick overview of Sailbot Workspace. And really the purpose of this meeting is to show how to take advantage of the features of Sailbot Workspace. A couple notes before we begin. I enabled key logging in the bottom right of my monitor so you can see what shortcuts I use. And what I recommend during this meeting is make sure that you understand like everything that I'm saying, and if you don't, like, ask questions as soon as they appear. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions during the meeting because we want to address those as soon as possible. Feel free to add to these meeting notes. They're in the regular place for the term meeting notes. And afterwards, since this will be recorded, you can follow along with it with this recording or refer to it as needed. All right, any questions to begin? If not, let's get started. First section, the setup. So both for the setup and the run sections, these are documented on the website. So I won't be going into too much detail of like what to install, how to install for your operating system. Those should be pretty well documented on the website, but I'll just quickly give a rundown and demonstrate as I go along. So first, you need to ensure that Docker is running. So here in my task bar, you can see the Docker is running, so I'm all good to go. We clone Sailbot Workspace repository, and I'm doing this. I'm on Windows, so I want to do this on WSL terminal, not like the PowerShell terminal. So now Sailbot Workspace is cloned. I can open Sailbot Workspace in VS Code. Let's see if I can split screen here. So on first open, it will look something like this. The first thing that you want to do is clone the source repositories. This is a new step that's not yet documented in the setup instructions. And it's because of some of the changes that I made today. But afterwards, I'll update the website in a couple days. Should be updated. So to clone the source repositories, all the repositories are defined in like this new project repos file. To do that, to be able to use this file, you need to install the correct tool, and it's called VCS tool. So to install a Python tool, you just do like pip install VCS tool. First, can everyone see uh, like my screen? Are the words too small, or does it look good? Okay, I'm getting a confirmation from Jamin.
It's good for me, but I have like a larger monitor. So someone else, if you can't see, make sure you speak up.
Sounds good. So yeah, as you can see, VCS tool is already installed for me, so then I can just go ahead and use it. The command, you can just copy it from the setup script. It's this VCS import command. So again, it's just reading all the repositories defined in this file and populating, cloning them into the source directory. Now we have that done, we can open Sailboat Workspace in a container. So what you want to do is run the def containers rebuild and reopening container command. You can click show log to see what it's doing. I guess the only useful part of this is like if it errors out, then you can see what's happening. Fortunately, everything seems to be working.
So Patrick, I had a quick question if you don't mind. So
Yeah.
I noticed that you clone the repositories outside the workspace where, as before, I know that you could do it inside the workspace. So is this a result of some new changes that were made recently?
Yes. Uh, yes. Changes that I did today. So some parts of the dev container require these repositories to be cloned. For example, in the docs website, the docs uh, repository defines a requirements file. So I need that to exist, and then I read that in the dev container to build the image. Okay, last step of the setup section is to open the workspace file. So right now, you've opened Sailbot Workspace as a folder. To open it, the workspace file, you'd have to go to .devcontainer config and open this file, and then in the bottom right, there should be an open workspace button. And what this does, besides gives it a nice color, I guess, is it opens the repositories in the source directory in like their own folder that you can see on the sidebar here. Here I'm getting a prompt that the container might need to be rebuilt. And whenever you see this prompt, might as well just rebuild it. All right. This should be done soon. Next topic I have is the different tasks that are defined in Sailbot Workspace. So to see these tasks, what you'd have to do is, one way you could bring them up is just type task and then space. This will bring up all the tasks defined in the workspace. Another way that you can see them is Control-Shift-P, which is your command palette, and then search for tasks, run task, and then you can select the task this way as well. To see, just want to highlight a couple key tasks that you'll probably use. The build task will build the different ROS repositories. Clean and purge, like if there's something wrong with your setup, you might want to try those tasks and build from scratch. We also have the setup task, which is I'll be using shortly, as well as the test task. So to run it, I would just like click one of these tasks.
Sorry, what was the first key one that you said again?
The first, sorry?
The first task that you said was one that we'll use quite a lot.
Build.
Oh, okay, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, no problem. Now, next thing that I want to go over is how you would run some ROS commands. So first you need to run the setup task. This does some ROS specific setup. It's nice that we automate this all for you. You don't have to go and figure out what this does really. Once it's set up, you can run the build task. There's two ways to run the build task. Either you can run it as usual, like you would run any task, or there's a shortcut for it. You can do Control-Shift-B. And what this does is it builds any ROS packages that it sees in the source directory. Right now, the only ROS package in the source directory is network systems. So that's why you see only network systems is being built right now. maybe for the purposes of this demo, I'll show you how to use the example repositories as well. So there are two example repositories that are commented out in the repos file. If I want to clone them, what I would do is uncomment them and then run the setup task again. And now you can see the source directory is populated with these repositories. Running the build task one more time. Okay, technical difficulty that I haven't seen. Oh, worked this time. For some reason, the first time I ran the build task, only the network systems repository was built. But the second time I ran it, I see now it's detecting the different repositories. Phew. Yeah, things always go wrong when they shouldn't. When you least expect it. Another troubleshooting thing that you might encounter is if you like try to look at your tasks, you won't like see these tasks that we defined for us. Like sometimes you'll only see like the default tasks, like these ones. What you could do to try and resolve that is run the reload window command, and that usually brings up like reloads the windows and like gets the custom task that we defined. Okay, seems like everything's finished building. That means we can run the ROS packages now. So let's open a new terminal, run ROS package. Let's say we want to run a node in the CPP pub sub example ROS package. So there's autocomplete available, CPP pub sub ex. The syntax for the run command is ROS2 run package name node name. And using autocomplete, I can just list the nodes available. So let's run the talker node. All this does is it prints hello world. Now in a new terminal, what I can do is run the listener node of the Python example. Py pub sub. Come on. So right now you can verify everything's working by seeing that the listener is publishing the value of the talker at the same time. So these numbers should match more or less. Any questions about ROS? Okay, moving on to the Docs website. So just today, we merged in a PR to integrate the Docs website with the Sailbot Workspace so that you don't have to open it in a separate repository or a separate window. So what you do is you go to like the ports tab and you can see which ports are open. The Docs website is running on 48,000. There's two buttons here that are relevant. First one is preview and editor, and this opens the website within VS Code. So here we can browse to different pages. If you want to open it in a separate browser, there's a second button as well. So let's say we want to update the Docs website. This can be done pretty easily. So let's say we want to update the run instructions. First step to do would be to open this file. So I'm just searching for the file right now. It's called run.md. Let's say an example change I want to make. I want to make this step 0 instead of step 1. I could just change that to step 0, hit save, and then you can see, you can verify your changes by looking at the website. See if that's what you want. Here, yeah, everything looks correct. Next step would be to push that change. If you're familiar with the Git like CLI commands, that's always an option. But if you aren't, there's also a GUI for doing that in VS Code. And what's nice is that you can see all the changes made in all the repositories that are open currently. So right now, this change was made. There are changes made in the Sailbot Workspace repository. And remember, we uncommented these repositories, these example repositories, to show how ROS is run. And there's also the change made in the docs repository. Here I can quickly verify the changes by looking at the diff. So I changed the 1 to 0. Yep, that's what I wanted to do. I'll click stage changes, write commit message, 0, 1, and I click commit. If you want to sync changes, this is the equivalent of doing a git push. In the command line, you can just click sync changes. Any questions about the git workflow?
So we can still use the normal git commands in the terminal window, right?
Yeah, the one thing that that you do have to be careful about is which terminal, which directory you're currently in, because there are multiple repositories, right? So right now we're in the Sailbot Workspace directory, and that will be equivalent to running git commands for Sailbot Workspace. So if I wanted to commit something for, or let's say I wanted to view the logs for the docs website, I'd have to cd into the docs directory, cd source docs, and then I can run the git commands as usual. This is not great. So here you can see my latest commit. Other way that you can do this instead of manually navigating to that directory is by opening a new terminal. And here you have the option to select different terminals. So here I can open a docs terminal directly. Here I noted in the meeting notes that the GitHub workflow won't be covered, like creating issues, writing pull requests, that sort of stuff. But we do have that documented in the website, and I've linked to the relevant page. Any more questions for the Git workflow? All right, let's move on. So there are some cases where you have to rebuild the dev container. And some of these cases I've listed here. When you update a branch, switch to a different branch, or update the configuration files yourself. Basically, whenever the configuration files change and you want to be able to use those changes, you'll have to rebuild the dev container. So right now, I'm going to switch to the website branch. So let's go to a terminal in Sailbot Workspace. Git switch at website v2. Okay, so it's complaining that this file is changed. I don't want to keep these changes, so I can just discard these changes. So right away, it actually automatically prompts me that things need to be rebuilt. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. So you might need to rebuild it yourself without the prompt. And how you do that is just by opening the command palette and, oh no, what happened? Please work. This is not good. Source website. Oh, okay. So what's happening right now, this is actually a good scenario that might occur for yourself if you're like just using Sailbot Workspace. So right now is reading the logs, I can see is complaining that it can't find the directory source slash website. That happened because I didn't clone it yet. So let's open this folder back in WSL. So we're outside the container right now. When we switched branches, one thing that was added was the website repository, but I haven't run the setup task since then. So I need to do that manually now. Since I'm outside the container, I can't run the setup task. I'll have to do it manually. Now it's cloned in there. Should be good to go now. Let's rebuild the container. So I just realized my keylogger keeps on crashing. That's kind of annoying. Face again. I'm going to ignore it this time. I think we'll be fine. Okay, so as you can see, I'm in a new branch, the add website v2 branch. And it has the changes. We rebuilt the container, so it has the changes that were done in this branch. Just to summarize, to rebuild the container manually, you can just run the rebuild containers task command, not a task. Syntax is weird. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, moving on, I just want to quickly cover what's going on behind the scenes so that you might be able to do some troubleshooting yourself. So right now I'm just opening the Docker Desktop GUI, which you only have if you install Docker Desktop. So some key concepts of Docker. There are the three main things that you need to know. They're containers, images, and volumes. Let's start with images. Images are kind of like your environment, like your operating system, which your program runs on. Now, containers are instances of an image. For example, For Sailbot Workspace, we have the dev image. This is a dev image that's published in the repository. What the dev container does is that it pulls that image from the repository and then it creates an instance of it. That instance is the container Sailbot Workspace -1.
I kind of have an analogy as well that helped me understand Docker images and containers. For those of you who are familiar with object-oriented programming, you can think of Docker images like a class and a Docker container like an object. An object is an instance of a class, right? So
Yeah, that's a good analogy. The last term to be familiar with is a volume, and volumes are used to persist data across containers. So since we're working in isolated environments called containers, we don't want to like lose data if there's something wrong with that particular container. For instance, like if we're working on this file, if we delete the file, we don't want to lose the changes. So what you can do is persist data by creating volumes. So there's one volume for VS Code, which it automatically creates. And this contains your files that are opened in VS Code, so that won't happen. Other volumes that I've created for the workspace include the database, MongoDB, your bash history, and your ROS logs. So even if you have to create a new container, you'll still be able to see the commands that you've run and the logs from your previous containers. So some things that you can do with a Docker GUI. First of all, you can view container details. So let's look at the details of the website. Here we can see the logs. Seems like everything's working as expected. Maybe I'll start with like an example case. Let's say the website's not starting, and how you know it's not starting is if it's grayed out. So these containers are stopped. Uh, the green containers are running right now. Yeah, I guess it says here too. So let's say it's stopped. You can go into logs, and then hopefully you'll be able to debug the issue from the logs. Or you can open like the terminal in the container and like run some commands for further debugging. You can inspect the files in a container, view how much resources it's using, but mainly the logs and the terminal are the most useful details of the container. Other things you can do is manually like stop a container or like pause it, because Docker like takes up a lot of resources. So if you're not like actively working on Sailbot, you might want to like save those resources by stopping it. Probably the easiest way to stop it though is just to exit out of VS Code, and it will stop all these automatically. If you find your computer running out of space, you can also delete some images. There might be images that you don't use, so you can delete those. It won't let you delete the images that you're using, which is good. Other thing you can do is you can delete a volume. Let's say you just want to wipe your bash history. You made a bunch of mistakes. You don't want to like ever see it again. So what you have to do is like close out of VS Code, make sure all the containers that were using that volume were deleted, and then you can delete a volume. Last point that I want to raise is you can also like pause Docker desktop entirely. So this will like stop all Docker processes, not just like the ones that are running right now. Or restart it if you see something's wrong. Any questions about Docker?
I'm a little confused about what volumes are. So, is it kind of like how, like is a volume like a project on Google Drive where different containers would be like different people's computers, and different containers can all access data that's in the volume?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's one way to think about it.
And how does that relate? You said something it saves the history of commands that you've run?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
thanks.
yeah, I can show you what a volume looks like, how it's defined. So let's say for the website, we want to pass the website files to that container. So on the left hand side of the semicolon, we give it the path to the website folder on our machine. So this is like the WSL folder where our website files are contained. And these files map to a different spot in the container, which is on the right hand side of the semicolon. So yeah, if we open like WSL, this is my WSL. The website is in source website, right? You can see these files. And these files, if you change one of these files, the files in the container that correspond to that will be updated as well. They're like a one-to-one mapping. Let's go to the website, open files, and here it's the path is /website. So we can just go to the root directory. This is the root directory, and this is the website folder, so we can see all these files here. Does that make sense?
Sort of. So is the volume the like that little text file? It's just a set of mappings, or is the volume the actual data that's stored in WSL? Does my
Uh,
question make sense?
the volume is the mapping from uh, your native file system to the container file system.
Okay.
That way, the reason why it persists data is because the data is not just in your container. If the container is deleted, the files still on like your native file system will still be there.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. The last topic that I have is specific to the website. Um, so if you don't see yourself working with the website, feel free to drop out of the meeting, or feel free to stay as well to learn more. Okay, so like I said, the website is in a new branch, add website v2. This corresponds to a PR. PR number, what is this? 119. So like I said, from the main branch, you want to switch to this new branch, rebuild the dev container, and then you should be up and running. So the changes in this branch is now we have MongoDB, Grafana, and the website repository all available to work with. And these are all in separate containers. I guess you could also see it from the Docker GUI. So right now we have Sailbot Workspace container, Grafana, MongoDB, the doc site, and the website. if I open the ports, you can see that there are more ports to find now. Also, like documented which ports are what in the devcontainer.json file. So port 3000 is Grafana, 3005 is the website, and like before I covered, 8000 is the docs. So let's go over Grafana setup first. Default username and password is just admin. You can set a new password, but I just keep it admin. Or you can skip it actually. Now you want to connect Grafana to the MongoDB database. To do that, you would go to data sources, add a data source. There's a data source called MongoDB community, which I hacked into this container. It wasn't originally there. So the URL is documented in the docker compose.yaml right here. We can copy that in. I don't think you need a username and password, so you can just save and test. And if you get that message, you're all good to go. You're able to read the MongoDB from Grafana. Let's quickly open the usage instructions that are documented in this PR to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh yeah, other ways you can access MongoDB directly from VS Code. So one of the extensions that are installed in Sailbot Workspace in the branch is the MongoDB extension. So what you would do is add a connection, and here you would just enter like that URL of the database, but I've already done that before, so it's saved over here. I can like just click it and it'll say connected. I haven't really explored the extension too much, but I think you can easily like read and write the database using this extension, like visually. Cover Grafana. Okay, next the website. Website's running on port 3005. And currently the website, I just copied it directly from the Next.js and MongoDB tutorial. So there's nothing like special about it. If everything's working as expected, the page should say you are connected to MongoDB. This is because in the website somewhere, I don't even know where actually, I entered the URL there. Oh yeah, in the environment file, I defined the MongoDB URL. And just like with the docs website, it supports hot reloading. So if I go to the home page, I can like edit it. You are very connected to MongoDB. Hit save and you can see it updates on the save. Okay, any questions about that? Any last questions? That was the last topic that I had planned for today regarding Sailbot Workspace.
Just one quick question. Did you have the website running? Was that in a VS Code tab or was that in a browser tab just now?
Right now, I had it open in a browser tab.
Okay. And you did that from, yeah, there was like in the local address window, there was the little internet symbol.
So the
Yeah,
globe
yeah.
opens it in a browser.
Yeah.
You can,
Oh, okay. And then that one opens it in VS Code.
yeah. So this is just like a very simple browser. We haven't gotten to the point where like the website doesn't support a simple browser, so this is fine to use as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Great. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting today. If you have any other questions, you can message me. Thanks for attending.
Thanks so much for running that, Patrick. I think that was really helpful.
Yeah. No worries. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.